Chapter 7. The Party.
Howdy, everypony. How y'all doing?
Applejack briefly wondered if the amount of awkwardness in the room was directly proportional to the number of ponies in it. She found herself incapable of measuring just how awkward she felt. The whole room prolonged a deep, cumbersome silence for a good few minutes, permeated only by Calvados's slowly growing fussing. At last, Mrs. Cake was the first to speak up.
Applejack, are you okay, dear?
Yeah, I'm fine.
She said, struggling to show it.
It's just, I didn't expect any pony to be planning a party.
At this, Pinkie Pie stepped forward with a huge, almost prideful grin.
Don't sweat it, AJ!
She chirped.
Pinkie, you and I need to have a long heart-to-heart when this is over.
It's okay, Applejack.
Pinkie replied out loud.
Twilight told me all about Cal and how he gets all jittery around crowds. Besides, party planning is my specialty, remember? So I made this party especially for Cal.
Applejack was about to respond with more irritation, but she took a moment to look around the room, and she felt her anger slowly fading. It was at this point that she noticed, excluding herself and her siblings, there couldn't have been any more than 10 ponies attending, all strategically placed to give the illusion of more empty space. The table was lined with dozens of delectable pastries and snacks, a large apple-shaped cake as the centerpiece. Funny-looking noisemakers resided on the table beside the food. Bunches of red balloons were anchored low to the ground for easy access. And in the corner of the room was a most bizarre object. A lamp with different shapes cut out of the lampshade, the shapes filled by colored plastic glued to the inside. With the shade over it, it gave off a bright display of glowing color.
Pinkie,
Seeing all of the different things Pinkie had done to accommodate for Cal took Applejack's breath away.
I don't know what to say.
Pinkie stepped up closer and laid a hoof on Applejack's shoulder.
I know what you could say.
She said with an almost sneaky tone.
You could say it's time to party.
She stopped when she seemed to realize her loud voice might upset Cal.
It's time to party.
Applejack,
Cal glanced up at Applejack and reached a hoof up to her.
go home?
He fussed, rocking a little on the spot. Applejack turned to answer, but Pinkie Pie beat her to it.
Hi, Cal.
She greeted him, keeping her distance and providing a stark contrast to her first meeting with him.
Remember me? I'm Pinkie Pie.
Cal glanced between his sister and the pink mare, huffed for a few seconds longer, then sat on the floor and covered his eyes with his hooves.
Pinkie, you do remember not to be too pushy with him, right?
Applejack asked warily.
Relax. I think I could play with him without making him a grumpy face.
She sat down in front of Cal, not too close, Applejack observed again, reached a slow hoof out, and gave him a gentle tap on the shoulder. Cal lowered his hooves slightly to see over them, and when he did, Pinkie Pie threw her own hooves in front of her face, waved them in front of her, and rocked back and forth on the spot. Just like Cal.
Pinkie, what do you think you're...
She stopped when she heard Cal start to giggle. His laughter built up in little time, and soon he was shrieking with laughter at Pinkie's behavior.
It's funny.
He asked, looking back at his sister once again.
Applejack, it's funny.
Now, confusion overtook anger, and Applejack's reply made it clear.
Yeah, funny, Pinkie.
Cal continued laughing, his amusement increasing when Pinkie occasionally pulled her hooves away for a second to make a face, peekaboo style. Seeing the complete opposite of what she was expecting, Applejack calmed down, and a fresh wave of guilt struck her hard.
Sorry about that, Pinkie. For a second, I thought you were making fun of him.
It's okay, AJ.
Pinkie replied as she pulled her friend into a hug.
We're all here to help fun and be friends with Cal.
She released Applejack and turned back to her brother.
What did you think of? Want to have some fun?
Have some fun? Yes!
Cal squealed happily, his cheeks rosy and his eyes glistening.
Bum 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 ba da ba da dum bum bum ba da bum 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 ba da.
10 minutes into the party, Applejack showed no indication of anxiety so far. Cal was enjoying himself, and he was even slowly opening up to the other ponies. Sweetie Belle sang in a subdued voice to the Ponytones record as Cal danced in his devil-may-care style. She, Scootaloo, and Applebloom had even taken turns sitting in front of the glowing lampshade with him and mimicking his stimming motions, including the rocking and the waving of hooves in front of the eyes.
Why are we doing this again?
Scootaloo whispered while Sweetie Belle took her turn.
Because he's my brother.
Applebloom whispered back.
He may be different, but I want him to make some friends, and this is the only way.
Both fillies glanced back at Cal, who had giggled loudly when Sweetie Belle spun the lampshade around.
It's pretty.
He asked between stimming sessions.
It's pretty.
Scootaloo sighed, her face worked up into a confused stare. After a while, she shrugged and said simply,
I guess all that matters is having fun.
Well, I'm not.
The snobbish retort came from behind and made the two fillies grimace. Turning, they saw Diamond Tiara and Silver Spoon approach from the corner of the room they'd been brooding in since the party began. Diamond Tiara wore an obvious frown, while Silver Spoon stared at Cal in confusion, not unlike Scootaloo had moments before, but with a slight hint of revulsion.
Well, if you don't want to be here, why even show up?
Diamond Tiara replied sourly.
Daddy made me come. He said it's a good idea to, what did he say? Oh yeah, to promote awareness of and kinship with ponies who are different from us. Whatever that means.
Applebloom and Scootaloo glanced at each other, both wearing frowns, then glanced at Cal, who seemed to be taking a break and leaving for one of the food-laden tables.
Now you listen here.
Applebloom turned roughly back to Diamond Tiara.
Cal may not be like other colts, but he's my brother. If you do anything to upset him, so help me, Celestial.
Applebloom?
Sweetie Belle said.
Ixnay.
Applebloom turned to look at her, catching some pony in her eye on the way. Cal was sitting next to them, having taken a few cookies from the table before joining them.
Appleboom is angry?
Applebloom's brow furrowed anxiously as she answered.
No, I ain't angry. We were just talking is all. No need to fret.
Diamond Tiara squinted a bit as she looked over Cal, seeming to scrutinize him for some reason.
Why don't you talk right?
She blurted.
Diamond Tiara!
Sweetie Belle chastised as she approached the scene.
That's not very nice.
Talk right?
Cal mumbled, staring at the floor.
Talk right?
Yeah, talk right. Why don't you?
Don't you?
Cal repeated, still looking down.
What is wrong with you? What are you, stupid?
Scootaloo gasped, and Applebloom almost dove into Diamond Tiara were she not being held back by Sweetie Belle. Even Silver Spoon looked shocked by her friend's audacity. Cal, however, took no offense whatsoever.
You stupid?
He repeated, as if it meant nothing. The pink filly, however, seemed to take the utmost offense.
I am not stupid! Just who do you think you are?
Calm down, Diamond. He's not calling you stupid. He just repeats things other ponies say.
Well, stop it!
Stop it!
Cal muttered with a hint of a giggle. Evidently, he thought Diamond Tiara was being funny.
I said stop that!
Said stop it.
Stop it!
Stop it.
Stop it!
Stop it.
Stop it!
Stop it.
Stop repeating everything I say!
Diamond Tiara finally shrieked, her words so fast that they seemed to blend together. This only served to tickle Cal even more.
Stop say!
Diamond Tiara's eyes began to twitch in annoyance, and she roared incoherently in frustration.
I don't need this! I refuse to develop kinship with him! I'm leaving!
As she stuck her nose in the air and stomped away indignantly, she continued airing out her grievances.
Daddy can cut my allowance down to 50 bits a week for all I care.
As Silver Spoon followed behind, she glanced back at Cal and the Cutie Mark Crusaders, then looked at her fellow rich filly in confusion.
Your dad gives you 50 bits a week in allowance?
Oh, shut up, Silver Spoon!
As the snooty Earth Pony fillies stormed out of the door of Sugar Cube Corner, there was an awkward silence in which the 4 remaining foals glanced back and forth at one another. Soon, slow grins started forming on the faces of the Cutie Mark Crusaders.
Cal,
Scootaloo began.
just so you know, that was awesome!
She reached forward and hugged Cal, who recoiled at first, but adapted.
No None of us have been able to get under Diamond Tiara's skin like that. Way to go!
Way to go!
Cal giggled and began to nuzzle Scootaloo's ear. The Pegasus filly giggled in return, and Applebloom looked on in amazement.
Wow! I ain't never seen Cal get on so quickly with some pony before. He must really like you, Scootaloo.
I don't know.
Sweetie Belle said, her tone dubious as her smile faded.
That was kind of mean. Diamond Tiara hadn't done anything to us. Well, yet.
Who cares?
Scootaloo rebutted as Cal continued to sniff her ear.
That was the best thing I've seen all week.
Besides, he can't help himself. He repeats ponies all the time. He ain't doing it on purpose.
Applebloom explained.
It's just part of what makes Cal, Cal. Know what I mean?
Know what you mean?
Cal mumbled back as he giggled with Scootaloo. Sweetie Belle glanced between the two youngest apples with concern, while Applebloom merely stared at her brother. She looked as though a sudden feeling of foreboding had overcome her, and she just couldn't shake it. A feeling that her older sister wholeheartedly shared.
What was I thinking?
She chastised herself.
Why'd I even think for a minute that nothing would go wrong? I should have been paying attention. I should have been ready for Calvados to make a scene and draw her.
Suddenly, she realized, or rather remembered, that it was Diamond Tiara who'd made a scene, not Calvados. Applejack suddenly felt the guilt strike her harder than it had all week.
You alright, AJ?
Applejack glanced up from her reflections to see Bonbon, the speaker, approaching with Lyra, both with friendly faces. Lyra wore a party hat over her unicorn horn, and Bonbon was half finished with a slice of cake.
Oh, yeah, I'm fine.
Applejack assured, trying to save face. It wasn't entirely false, but it still hurt Applejack, the element of honesty, to lie.
You sure?
Lyra asked.
You look like you have a lot on your mind. Come on, cheer up.
Bonbon beamed.
Your little brother's having fun. That's what this party's about.
She stopped as she appeared to consider something for a moment.
You know, come to think of it, I don't think you've ever talked about having another brother. How come you don't talk about Cal a lot?
Well...
She began, distressed and unsure of how to answer.
Well, he lives out of town, see? And I don't get to see him all that often. I guess I don't think about it a lot. I probably should, though.
You really should. That Cal is such a doll,
Lyra replied.
I swear, I have never seen a cuter colt. And the way he handled that little brat?
Bonbon added.
You must be so proud of him.
Applejack was about to answer when she caught a sight in the corner of her eye. Cal was now running around in small, tight circles, as if chasing his own tail. The older apple remembered his therapist saying that this was another of his stimming methods, and let it be. After all, Cal was going to act however he wanted to act, and there wasn't much to be done about it. At that notion, the knot in Applejack's stomach tightened.
It sort of makes me wonder, what it would be like to have a full...
Lyra said longingly.
Bonbon and I talked about it, but it's kind of a touchy subject right now.
Suddenly, there was a beeping sound, and Bonbon brought her foreleg up to look at her watch.
Oh no! Oh, I'm sorry, every pony. Urgent mission. Enjoy the party!
And with that, the cream earth pony quickly made for the exit.
And then there's also her job, I suppose.
Lyra merely scoffed.
I know work brings up a lot of problems, but it's as if she has these problems 2 or 3 times a day. Makes me wonder what she's doing that's so important.
Applejack shrugged as Bonbon left. Her exit was punctuated by the likely unintentional slamming of the door. Calvados, who had stopped spinning to get another slice of cake, froze in place just as the door slammed. As he dragged the entire pan of cake towards him, the shock of the noise made him drop it, and it clattered against the floor, destroying the cake and spreading crumbs and frosting all over. Calvados's fussing started almost immediately.
Oh no. Please, Cal, get it together. Please get it together.
But Cal could not. His breaths became labored and strained, his voice rose several decibels, and his movements became spastic.
It broke! It broke! It broke!
Was the only intelligible phrase heard from him as his mood escalated.
What happened?
Oh no! He dropped that cake!
Don't you worry, hon. We can make you another one.
Mrs. Cake walked up to him, her tone calm and motherly.
Don't be upset.
Cal wasn't listening. His whining was now bordering on full screaming, and he accentuated it by stamping his hooves furiously.
It broke! It broke!
He glanced around the room whenever he was not screaming, but the faces of ponies looking back at him with varied reactions seemed to intensify his building meltdown. Not even Apple Bloom, swiftly making her way to him for a calming embrace, was enough to slow it down. Applejack had seen enough.
The party's over.